Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about offices. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, I am starting a software development company. What do I need to set up a great office space? Well, I would optimize the absolute shit out of giving a wow impression to visitors over trying to create a workspace for your people. This sounds counterintuitive, but just hear me out. So there is a lot of debate going back and forward. What's going to make you productive? What's going to work for you, and so forth? The open spaces versus closed spaces. How much light do you need, etc., etc., etc. In my experience, the usual thing that you need to account for is what types of people are you going to have in the company, what are their basic needs, and how do you account those for those needs without compromising with the experience that you get when people come into your office. Something that a lot of people underestimate, unless of course they're in sales or something like that where they actually meet a lot of customers, is that your business gets a lot of its credibility from appearances. If you have a really nice office space and people seem really professional and it seems like a serious place of work, you will sign more contracts. It's a fact. I promise you, you will sign more contracts when you have clients over and so forth. And at the end of the day, if you in IT, there isn't really a big need for an office space these days. Doing remote work is, I mean, at least not for the engineers. The engineers don't really need to be on premises all the time. Doing remote work and all this stuff is actually something that you can very seriously consider. I'm not saying necessarily that you have to go and say, oh, we're going to be an all remote company, but there are many companies that are making this work as well. And if you think about how much you could potentially save, assuming of course that you feel comfortable with that sort of setup, it's something that you should very seriously consider. But let's say for the sake of argument that you really are going to set up an office space. Well, open spaces is a very good thing, and having a lot of white and a lot of natural light that comes into the room is a very good thing, because the more spacious you can make it, the better the feeling is going to be for the people who come in there. Now, apart from that, something that is really important is the placement. I don't know how big your company is going to be, but I mean, if it's just a small, like few people working type of a deal, then you can just talk to people and see kind of how they want to sit, assuming, of course, that they have a preference. Usually people have some type of preference, but if you're designing a slightly bigger space, you should ideally to think about groupings of people. Ideally, you want the people who are very like you want to spread out the talkers if at all possible. So people who work in support or work in sales or anything, people who are on the phone constantly, try to spread them out. Uh, and be a little bit careful with grouping them too tightly, because even if they all talk, quote unquote, they're going to talk at roughly the same sorts of times, and that's going to get in their way. Which brings us to another very important aspect, which is if you're going to optimize for any type of room, just make sure that you have enough meeting rooms, or at the very least enough quiet rooms, because you have no idea how many, again, when your business grows, you will have quite a lot of usually sales related conversations and meetings and so forth, a lot of administrative work that goes on, and it is a shit show to schedule time slots for meeting rooms and having customers over and so forth if you don't account for that. So that is like, if you optimize for anything at all in terms of spaces and extra rooms and so forth, optimize for quiet rooms with a table and like share, so that people can just go in there and take a phone call or take a Skype call or like a video thing or whatever. That's the best thing for you. Then apart from that, try to associate groups that will work very closely together. So if let's say that you have a engineering team that's going to work with another engineering team on a fairly, I mean, they're sort of in the same sphere, it makes a lot of sense to keep them fairly close so that they can just talk to each other. And those, I would say, I mean, you can of course make your space your own thing, but if you follow these basic guidelines, you will have a very good office space. The best tip I can give you in terms of distances and so forth is the closer the better. You will be surprised if, I mean, if you have a two-floor plan or something like that, try to group again based on association. Don't just do some semantic thing, or where the designers are up there and the developers are down there or so forth. Try to always make sure that the people who are in proximity of like in their same area of your business, they should be close, because you will find a lot of the time that even a distance of just one floor makes the communication flow less, because why it's so great to have them fairly close together, because if it's close enough, you will have all these organic conversations that you want. A healthy co-worker relationship is usually one where you just have these we call them water cooler talks, but it doesn't have to happen there, right? You want this thing to happen fairly often. And the thing about having open spaces, if you really see this as a problem, try to adopt an office culture where people have noise cancelling earphones and things of that nature, because I know that some people will tell you that modules is the thing in like a lot of walls and so forth, but if you close off the space and you lose if you lose the open space, your office will actually seem a little bit shoddier. It's not going to go over as well with your customers, and that is, as I said, a very important aspect when dealing from the business perspective. And frankly, the engineers, trust me when I say this, they probably, I mean, the people who really want to be in the office, they're going to be in the office, but if you tell them that, yeah, you can probably work from home and so forth, it's fairly convenient, well, that's something that they're probably going to be very open to in many cases. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you're setting up your own IT company and you want to have some ideas on how to design your office space, go for number one, space, open areas as much as humanly possible. A lot of natural light, like white walls and things like that, is a very good thing. The more light you can bring in, the better, because what you want is you want this to be a place where you can very proudly show off the office space to your customers and visitors, because it does make a difference in the perspective of to the perception of the people who are coming there. They will view your environment and your workspace as a reflection of your organization. That's a very important thing to remember. Second thing you want to optimize for is keep people, try to spread out the people who have a lot of phone calls to deal with and so forth, and optimize, if at all possible, to have quiet rooms. The more meeting rooms, the better, and because you're going to have a lot of that stuff going on. In some cases, people just want a quiet place to take a phone call or a Skype call. Try to remember that. That is the best type of room, except for maybe bathrooms, that you can design for. Lastly, make sure that you associate teams that are fairly adjacent just in the work that they do. The closer you can get the teams that actually are going to talk to each other, the better, because the closer you get them, the likelier they are to have these organic small conversations on every that you want to have, and that's going to help with communication flow. They're going to feel more comfortable with each other. There might actually become some friendship types of situations and so forth, because the more people interact with each other, the more natural the natural it will feel for them to do that. And that's exactly what you want, to have a collaborative environment, especially in IT, where innovation is such an important factor. Have a great day.